another, I think it used to be a
It was a cheesecake.
pie or cheesecake place.
Cheesecake.
I think they still want to have that kind of one-person type of facility, small shop there for selling.
How many square feet is that?
540 square feet.
Small,
It's
yeah.
small, I think there's a couple refrigerators in there.
I was in there, yeah, it was small.
Right.
The Department of Transportation said that it was not necessary to have a,
It's not,
What was their
actually, they
determination?
declined to comment
Oh, right.
on the application, and cited that the village board, should there be a request for a crosswalk, that they should file an application for a permit, a public work permit with the state. And we did discuss this at length with the planning board. One of the mitigations that we recommended is that a lot of the, that all of the parking on site would be allocated for customers. And then, and with the employees that would be in the building to use the parking municipal lot. And that's what we kind of do at our office at Middletown, so
Right.
you would only cross the
So
street
that
twice.
you're not
One
having
in
your
the morning,
customers,
one in the, when you leave, and then the customers don't have to cross the street, they're
Right.
going to remain on site.
which is how most businesses should work. They park the furthest away,
Exactly.
and then your customers park closest. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Caitlin Kitzrow, 120 Round Hill, Washingtonville. So I hear the question about, potentially making sure that those who are parking, but I agree that the 20 spaces, I had a reaction to that as well. 6, that makes sense for how many employees might be working, but 20 seems a little bit extreme. I keep looking at this plan and wondering why we have a 3rd office. I also saw that little accessory and it said bakery, and I was thinking it was the bakery for the bagel shop. So that helps to clarify that it might be a 4th business. I was going to say, if you're carrying bagels across that parking lot, it's not a good idea. So I'm glad that's not the case. However, I still look at this and I wonder, why does it need to have the 3rd rental space? Because we already have a lot of empty rental businesses just on that corner, over in Brotherhood Plaza. And so as someone who is excited about bagels in town, I still look at that and I wonder, I would vote for a patio over a 3rd business space that could be empty, if it were up to me. So I just offer that as as we think about the square footage that influences the parking, that influences the variances, all of these things, is there a way to kind of dial that back to say maybe lower the square footage so that you can fit the parking spaces, so that it, that maybe there are some other solutions to be found, aside from just adding more and more parking spaces. Thanks.
Thank you. Just to give you a little history, this came before us back in January, I believe. We've been back and forth with this many months between the zoning and planning. That was one of our discussions, actually, and the answer was, with the cost of building supplies, which now have exactly since January, it did not make sense for them to build a smaller building with the rents. That they needed that extra building, that extra office space rather, to make it worth their while in building.
Another
So that
question
was
on
brought
the
up.
square footage. So you said it's a single story, but it looks like a 2-story, or like there could be something
Gable.
up top.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that also an option that instead of a 3rd on the base floor, would you have to put in an elevator in order to have a 2nd floor? Small office, if it really is just one person, one office, and say an attorney or an accountant, would you have
Well,
to put that in?
Or you need handicap accessible, but it's, the design of the building is in keeping with the village look,
Yeah.
the appeal,
Right.
the country atmosphere.
But it will be
that-
taller than Betty's, than the current.
Not really.
Got it,
No,
okay.
not
So it would be
really,
about
no.
that.
Yeah, Betty's was 2-story and not in code compliance at all. there were no handicaps back in the 1800s.
Right, I live in my house in the.
They all walked.
1863.
Yeah, they weren't on their phones or playing games, they walked and, worked and
Yeah,
they were healthy.
I live in a farmhouse. You don't
Yeah.
know me.
And that brings up a good point, because the configuration of the building aids to the layout for ADA access to a
Right.
single-story flat.
Right.
We're able to build in a little better access, as previously Eddie's probably struggling a little bit.
Anyone else have any comments?
I'm
Yes.
just curious, so what they want to do is, the square footage that they're supposed to be allowed to put on that piece of property, they want you to break all the rules and cut everything more than in half, for what they are, what the charter says that we're supposed to have, the amount of space, on every side. So they have, so, just break, whatever the rules are, just change them all, so they could build a place that's a lot bigger than Betty's. I just want to know if that's what they're trying to do. I like the way the building looks, I just don't understand why the village wants,
It's not more than, yes, please.
because it sounds like you've made up your mind already.
No.
Well, I'm sorry, but it does sound that way.
Right, okay, well, I apologize if that's how it seems.
We've already voted on this once
We've
before also.
voted on this already.
I understand that,
And then
Previously,
there
this
was
is
a-
coming from the planning board already,
I understand that.
several times.
But isn't it the fact that if it's 400, they want it to be 200. If it's 200, they want it to be 100. They want to cut everything on every side. And that's what they're asking you to do, say that that's okay. Bigger building, no more space.
Your code, as well as New York State law, provides a mechanism through the ZBA process to apply for variances in a case, and there's a standard, you'll hear the board discuss that standard. And the applicant is making the request. The zoning board's role is to evaluate those standards, and in a case-by-case basis, whether the applicant, and generally, and we can go through those standards, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood to the detriment to nearby properties, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance, whether the requested area variance is substantial, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, and whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Those are the standards which are not yes, no necessarily, but taken in the totality of all the standards together on a case-by-case basis to allow as a safety valve in instances where a strict application may be a hardship. So that's why we're soliciting public comment as well as hearing the presentation of the applicant so that the board can make that evaluation.
So does that mean you're saying yes or no to my question, whether or not they're trying to cut everything in half? That's all I asked.
The applicant, what I can say is the applicant has requested the variances that are stated in the public notice. So those are the variances that are requested and are being evaluated by the board this evening.
So the only addition now is that they want to own the parking lot across the street.
There is a provision in our code that allows properties within 500 feet to request a waiver from parking standards if they're within a certain distance of a municipal lot.
Years ago, when Metamorphosis was going in on East Main Street, we made a decision based on parking because they are within a certain amount of feet from the public parking spot, behind the computer store and Amada's, and that is in part of our code. So this has been done many times before, that you are able to use a public village or municipal parking lot as part of your parking spots.
Permanently.
Permanent?
Permanently.
It's
It's theirs.
just-
They own 16, they'll give
No, they
them the 20
don't,
spots.
no, sir, they do not own the lot, the spots. No one owns the spots, they're municipal spots. but they are able to use them as an overflow if needed. In most cases, they're not needed, but that provision is put in our code that if you are within a certain amount of feet, a business can use those if they're short one. Stewart's did it. When Stewart's reconfigured their building 4 or 5 years ago, they were able to use, believe it or not, the parking spots on the street, on East Main Street. They were short 2 spots, 2, 3 spots. So this has been done many, many times, for years and years. And that is in our code, in our law, and in most municipalities as well.
I too like bagels and would like to have a bagel place. I just was really surprised when I saw the size of that compared to Betty's.
Right.
It's huge. It shouldn't be any bigger than the building that was there. It was just supposed, as far as I knew at the time, it was a bagel store. I didn't expect, that's the size of the mall, the other mall, around the corner. So it,
Thank you.
It's only 5% difference, correct?
It's a slight
Lot
with the
coverage.
lot coverage.
Right.
Oh, so actually it's only 3%, but we're requesting a 5% as a buffer in case there need to be slightly more impervious than we're shown, we don't have to reapproach the board for variance, and we gave ourselves a little bit more room.
How much bigger than Betty's, with, not square footage, because I know it was 2 stories, but, because really you're not covering the parking lot.
No, I mean,
that
Betty's
much.
probably, this is 90 feet long by 60 feet wide, it's 54 square feet. So I have the scale on me, but this is probably
It's,
close to 40 feet wide.
yeah, it's not, it's not that much bigger than Betty's, believe it or not. It
certainly looks it.
It looks like.
it looks like it because it's a large drawing so that the audience can see it, but it's not, you know, it's small enough to fit in the parking lot. So you can kind of maybe gauge it that way. Believe me, I feel the same way, and I get your point, and we'd all like to turn back the hands of time, but unfortunately, can't.
Excuse me, can I just ask one question? Could I
Yes.
just ask one question, please?
Yes,
I'm not that familiar with it, I've seen the picture, but, by the way, I live on West Main Street.
your name, please?
Marie Erickson. I'm at 43, right past the 3 lots.
Thank you.
Is there an area of grass in front of that building? Or does it start right at the sidewalk?
No, there is a buffer. There is grass.
Yep, there's a buffer.
Yeah,
Obviously not
there's-
where the driveway is going to
Right.
come off the sidewalk. but
It's very similar to Betty's, how Betty's was. If you know, the sidewalk, and then there's grass and then the curb.
We did present a full landscape plan.
Right.
Do you mind if I go up a little bit?
Absolutely. It is very similar to what was there with Betty's. And we did ask for changes back in January. We asked for several changes, actually. And they had to go back to the planning board. We kind of put them through the ringer, but we did scale down quite a bit.
Patio is going to be right on the sidewalk there?
Well, if the board, the zoning board inclines to not grant us the extra spaces, we will be reviewing that patio.
The patio in the front, that the planning board asked you to do that?
Well, they said they had come to the determination, look, we need to consider this as patron space, or space available to patrons for the restaurant use, which they didn't before.
So that's why you need the extra spots.
That's the only reason why we need the extra spots.
Are you having a patio in the back? You're not having any patio at all,
So
except,
that's in front of the bagel place, correct?
Correct.
So this way they could sit out on the patio and eat their bagels, whatever.
Right.
Will there be seating and everything available, I assume?
Yeah, there'll be a couple, some seats available. It'll just be seated when you're not gonna do this in winter.
how many square feet would that be?
600 square feet, 20 by 30.
20 by 30,
Right.
my front porch.
Right. Unfortunately, you have to do 45, one space per 45 square feet of
Right,
kitchen, which is why the number goes up.
Well, you're lucky it wasn't last year, it'd be a lot more.
Right.
Just saying.
I understand your concern, we do feel that it is minor, given the capacity of a lot across the street, but I understand that. Previously proposed.
I don't have any more questions.
Jim, any more questions? No?
Any more questions from the public?
Anyone? All right, we have a motion to close the public hearing.
Well, no, you're gonna close the public hearing and then you
Close the public
can,
hearing.
and then you can have any, so.
Second,
Just give me
Jim,
one second, I
and
can't-
then Merrill. Jim made the motion and Merrill second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Certainly, you can always close the public hearing and then have a discussion
Right.
once you've solicited the public comment. So if you want to go back to 61, then you can finish your discussion.
Let's just finish this.
Okay.
Can I ask who the owners are?
Pardon?
Who are the owners?
They own the bagel store in Goshen, and they own one in Middletown.
No, I mean their name.
Frank Kuhn?
Yep.
If-
You
the-
could certainly
the
foil
owner
the
is Orange
application
County
if you'd
Bagels.
like as well.
The owner is Orange County Bagels. He was here many months ago, a couple times. I wouldn't.
Brent Kunis.
Brent, that's right.
Is
They
the
own,
owner of Orange County Bagels.
right, they own a bagel store in Goshen and one in Middletown that are very well, I've been to both of them. Whenever we have
I have
anything
no
like
problems
this.
with the bagel place.
Right,
I
right.
I
But
just
just
like,
to let
I
you
like
know.
living in a small town. It's not,
So do I,
you can-
so do I. Believe
you
me,
get- we're being forced out.
believe me, I agree with you and,
Well,
but I
You'll be
want
saying
you
goodbye
to
to
know
me, too.
that I visited both stores on multiple occasions, and they're run very nicely, very well, very clean, kept up. So the board does do their homework when we're
Absolutely.
making decisions like this.
I understand.
It's very
I
difficult.
didn't even know they were gonna, I thought the Orange Bagels was gonna be in what used to be Betty's. I thought that was it.
In order for them to renovate the building because of the fire damage was so extensive, nobody, not even Betty's could do it. The insurance didn't even come close to what had to be done because of the extensive damage. It was way more than anyone had thought it to be. And being an old building, it was like a chimney, It just went up.
I don't know. I always thought people had enough insurance to replace the building that they were in.
You would think, yeah, we can only hope. Okay, board comment on this? What is your feelings? Do you have any concerns about the parking? The parking would not be an issue if it wasn't for the patio.
Right.
So,
I am actually in favor of the patio because,
I like
yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
aesthetically it's gonna be, break it up a little bit more. I'm not concerned about the 20 parking spots because most of the year they
Well,
are
you've dealt with
not
that
used. Exactly.
on the committee, so
Right.
you know what
And
goes
the
on.
farmer's market's not there anymore. It's not there anymore. Exactly.
Right.
Would not be year round.
It does kind of bring a feeling of, you go through some other villages and towns where they're able to have patios, and outside dining, it does kind of give you that feeling of hominess
Community,
and
yeah.
community and people getting together and talking and, so it is a nice, I'm not crazy about the 20 spots, but I do like the patio,
Without the
so
visuals.
I have to kind of weigh,
The way, yeah,
yeah.
I understand.
So there are no further comments. Ready to vote? Do you want to do each one?
No, I'm not gonna,
Can we do it as one?
well, I'm gonna break out a couple, but I'll treat the area variances as one, and I just,
Thank you.
Can you make any motions?
I'm not trying to rush.
Can you make
No,
motions?
no, I know, we've kind of been down this path.
We've been here so many times.
So just so the board is aware, and all of this is going to be incorporated, we're going to adopt the public comments in the record.
Yes.
So as part of the record, it's going to include your the public hearing and your prior application as well with us, and we're adopting those findings. The board originally adopted a determination dated February 8th, in which it set out the findings, okay? As to the variances, I will skim that briefly, okay? Just as to the findings, okay? As to the question of whether an undesirable change will be produced, and this is as to the area variances, as to whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variances. The answer to this is no. The proposed variances will permit the construction of a business center with 3 businesses located therein. The purpose of the neighborhood business district is to promote the creation of business to allow foot traffic to exist. This location will provide same. Additionally, the neighborhood consists of a utility company, other businesses, a school district, and a municipal parking lot. The proposed project fits in exactly with the types of buildings and uses in this area. Additionally, the building as it currently exists would need to be remodeled or demolished as a result of the fire. The building presents limited uses for which a future owner could use it. As such, the new construction provides the best alternative. Does anybody wish to add to the undesirable change? Whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved in some method other than an area variance. The answer to this is yes and no. The applicant stated that he could remodel the building and invest several $100,000 for the limited use of a bed and breakfast. Because of its layout, it presents limited options for future uses. The board determined that the applicant could not accomplish his goal of having a business center development with the property in its current condition. Due to the rising cost of construction, it is necessary to have a certain amount of units to make a project profitable. The neighborhood business district wants business center development, but it only permits it on lots of almost 2 acres in size. There are no properties in the zone that would satisfy this requirement. As such, the applicant's proposal to create the business center could not happen anywhere else in the zone. Anything else on that question? Whether the area variance is substantial, the board finds this answer to be yes, based on the requested size dimension, but no as it relates to the property location and proposed project. The variances request reductions. I'm not going to repeat both reductions that you've read. All of these reductions are substantial. However, based on the project location, they are not. The adjoining properties do not have individuals that reside there. There are a business, a school district, and a utility company. Therefore, the substantial nature of the reductions are minimized by the project's location. If this property were located in a residential neighborhood with people living next door and possible daily effects on everyday life, the outcome would be much different. However, its location in a commercial zone with no neighbors, except for those of a corporate nature, make the proposed variance to be less substantial. I would also note that there are other projects in the area that have similar lot coverages and dimensions in very close proximity. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or an impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the proposed neighborhood or district, the board finds the answer to be no. I'll also note for the record, you have the benefit of the negative declaration issued by the planning board and the findings after a full secret review. Whether the alleged difficulty is self-created, the board finds this answer to be yes. There can be no dispute that the applicant self-created the request to construct the proposed building. However, the board determines that the current code in essence makes the construction of a business center impossible under the current zoning. The zoning requires almost 2 acres to create such a center, and there are no such lots of that size in the neighborhood district to accomplish the same. As such, even though it is self-created by the applicant's proposal, this factor when viewed against the current zoning code does not adversely affect the impact. Is there anything else you wish to add on the area, the dimensional area variances?
No, I just want to reiterate to the public that I do not believe that this would have gone through had it been in any other place in the village. The fact that I believe it's the utility company is next door, which I've never seen a parking spot or a car in there. You've got the school, you've got businesses, there is no residential. It by no way is near residential. So that was a lot.
That's not correct. There's a house right across the street.
Okay, it's
two
not a
families that are
neighborhood.
renting it.
It's not a neighborhood.
Excuse me?
Pardon?
What did you say? I'm sorry?
The public hearing is closed.
Right.
I thought you said it wasn't in a neighborhood.
It's not in a neighborhood, in the middle of Stone Ridge, for instance. We liked it because of where it was located, which is what was said in the comments a couple minutes ago.
Basically, Betty's is inadequate, the building. So it has to be torn down. And that building, it encompasses the area that Betty's was in.
A lot more than where Betty's was.
But in the lot, so it's not going over.
I understand that. It's just, isn't just the bagel place, which is what I thought it was gonna end up being.
I'm really sorry, but we closed the public comments.
Yes, it seemed to me like it was closed before we even got here.
Yeah, it did. Sounds like it.
I disagree.
No, you've been smiling and talking to him before it started, as if you even stopped talking to these gentlemen to get him done faster.
We're trying to get the public hearing part out of the way and done.
That
was
absolutely is not the case at all.
I'm looking at it from a different angle.
Excuse me, let me explain. We've had these applicants before us since January, December or January. We were trying to streamline the meeting so that we can, the public hearing part, so that we can focus on 61 East Main Street.
I understand,
There is
ma'am.
no,
I understand, and that's
61
not a
East Main Street is
complaint.
brand
It
new.
just bothered me a little bit, and it bothered me that this is a public hearing about something that the decision seems to have been made before we got
well, I
here.
asked, that absolutely is inaccurate. Absolutely inaccurate. We listen to every single comment that everyone makes.
I'm
And
not
I
saying you
agree
didn't.
with most of you. Unfortunately, we go by the law, not our personal feelings. We go by the law.
You were talking up there about how you'd like to have a place to stop and have your bagel on the sidewalk. How is that not
That
possible?
is in our, what have we been working on?
There's nothing wrong with it being personal, I get that, but
It's not personal at all. I don't know these people from Adam. I have never met them before. I mean, I've seen them here.
What would fit in, what fits in?
What fits into the community. That's what we're looking for. And when we're doing our, what have we been working on? The comprehensive plan. We've been working on our comprehensive plan for the village for the past year, okay?
More than a year.
And with COVID, we had to do it in increments. But this is, our comprehensive plan encompasses what we feel that the village wants and the look and the feel of what it wants, to stay country, to stay small, to stay with a country feel and not get citified. Because everybody that moved up here is looking to get away from the city. We're looking to come into nice country where you're with your neighbors. And any comment that I made was not a personal feeling. It was how I'm looking at bringing the community together, where they'll see people, they'll walk by. We're looking for foot traffic so that other businesses can thrive.
Walkability.
People will walk from one business to the next. But please do not ever think that any of your comments are not listened to or not taken to heart. And no one is ever treated differently in this room.
As to the area variances, does anybody have anything to add to those factors that we just enumerated?
No.
If there is a motion to grant or deny?
Just as to the dimensional, we'll address the interpretation and the parking separately.
I make a motion to accept the
Okay, Jim,
dimensional change.
second.
Motion to accept.
So Marilyn, second.
Just give me 1 second.
Aye.
Aye.
With
I'm the translator.
Yes,
Here's some-
I go to you, yeah. We're
With,
playing
re-
a game
with
of phone.
respect to the application requests an interpretation as to whether more than one business can be located on the lot. I do note that your code, this is being processed as a business-centered development, and by that definition allows for more than one unit. I would ask for a motion for that interpretation. Were you to grant that motion, the use variance would be moot because it meets your definition of your code.
I'll make a motion that we accept it as a business standard development.
Second?
Second.
Marilyn, second. Jim first, Marilyn second. And a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we had previously granted a variance pursuant to your code, which allows, essentially what it allows is the offset of the parking calculation
Right.
if you're within 500 feet of the municipal space. The applicant has been granted a variance of 6 under our prior code. He is now requesting an additional up to 20.
I'll make a motion that we accept that, but I would like to add comment to that if it was not that the farmer's market has been moved, I would not be voting in favor of this. But I will make a motion to accept that.
Second.
Aye.
I'll put all of that in a typed decision, give me a couple of days and get that over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.